Welcome to today's Emunah Minute. There's an incredible Mishnah, Maseches Peh. We did it not so long ago in Mishnah Yomi. The Mishnah says in Parak Zayin Mishnah Aleph. The Mishnah is talking about the halachos as they apply to the laws of shichacha. Shichacha means if you go ahead and you leave something behind in the field, you have to leave it for the poor. So you're harvesting your wheat, you forget a stalk, you leave it behind. Your bundle, again, there are different names for different types of gifts to the poor. But on the most basic level, shichacha means you forgot to harvest something, you left it behind, you leave it for the poor. So the Mishnah actually describes that this concept could even apply with trees. You forgot to harvest a particular tree, so you would leave the fruit of that tree or a section of the tree, you leave it for the poor. And the Mishnah says something amazing, but there's an exception to this rule. What's the exception? If you have a tree that has an identity, if it has a distinct identity, then it can't become shichacha. If it has a distinct identity, then we assume the owner can't, quote unquote, forget about it. And therefore, it always remains the property of the owner, even if he, quote unquote, forgot to harvest it. Its identity makes it unforgettable, too significant to become shichacha, to become forgotten produce and become the property of the poor. And the Mishnah says, so what makes a tree so significant? What makes the tree so important? And the Mishnah says there are three things. Bishmo, b'ma'asav, u'b'mekomo. Shmo, it has a name. It has a name. If the tree has a name, it has an identity. Right? If it has an identity, it has a name, then it can't be forgotten. B'ma'asav. If the fruits, literally ma'asav means actions. In other words, if the fruits of the tree are unique, there's something unique about the olives that grow on it that cause it to be distinguished from everything else around it, then it can't be forgotten. Or, b'mekomo. The location of the tree is such that it stands in a unique spot and therefore can't be forgotten. Bishmo, b'masav, u'b'mekomo. The tree has a name, the fruits are unique, its actions, the actions of the tree are unique, or the location of the tree is unique. And I thought that what an incredible metaphor for life. Because the Torah tells us, Ki adam eitz hasada. Man is like a tree. And man is like a tree for many different reasons. Man has roots, previous generations. Man has branches, his offspring. He has fruits, that which he produces, his dynamic activities. But the truth is, the same things that make a tree distinct are the same things that make us distinct as well. Bishmo. What's the identity we are creating for ourselves? Some people like to say, I don't care what other people think. You have to care what other people think for one simple reason. Each of us is an ambassador of the Ribbon Shalom. We are an ambassador of God. And just like an ambassador represents his country and has to put his best foot forward, each of us represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and as such must put our best foot forward also. What's the name we have? How do other people view us? What's the identity we've created? What do we stand for? What are our ideas? What are our ideals? When people look at us, what do they see? Do they see an ambassador of God? Or chas v'shalom, do they see something else? If you don't want to become shichacha, if you don't want to be forgotten, if you want to carve out an unforgettable identity for yourself, then the first step is create for yourself a good name. As Shlomo Melech writes, Tov Shemi Shemen Tov. A good name is better than good oil. Number 2, Ma'asav. It's wonderful to have a good name, and it's wonderful to have a good identity. But what also matters is, what do you do? Day in, day out, what are my actions? How do I live my life? What am I doing? How am I contributing? How am I making a difference? It's easy to talk the talk. The question is, do we walk the walk? Do we produce? I espouse ideas, I espouse ideologies. This is what I stand for. This is what I believe in. That's beautiful. That's a great first step. Now, what do? B'ma'asav. I have to ask myself, what are my actions? What is the totality of my dynamic life activity? When I look at a day of my life, what have I done? What have I accomplished? How have I grown? Ma'asav. If you don't want to become shichacha, if you don't want to be forgotten, if you want to go ahead and carve out for yourself an unforgettable identity, your actions matter. And lastly, mekomo, your place. Where do we choose to plant ourselves? It's nice to think that our surroundings don't impact us, right? It's nice to think that I can be friends with everyone, associate with everyone, create relationships with everyone, and those relationships will have no effect on me. But all of us know there's nothing further from the truth. Where you plant yourself, your surroundings, the people you're around, the individuals with whom you connect, all of those things have a dramatic impact on who we are. The makom, the place where we plant ourselves, impacts our identity. And as such, what's true for the trees is true for man. A tree becomes unforgettable. A tree cultivates an identity if it has a name, if it has actions, and if it has a place. And the same is true for us. May we be Zochem Yirtz Hashem to carve out a proper name for ourselves. May we be privileged to engage in the proper dynamic life activities, and may we find the strength to plant ourselves in the places that are most conducive to personalistic growth. Wishing everyone a wonderful day.